Hi everyone, welcome to a new episode of Realtor Talks. Today we're going to be talking with my colleague Ben Preece, who's here on this talk with me. And if you're watching on video, you can see him here as well. He's our photographer and videographer here at luxuryproperty.com. And today we're going to be talking about all things photography and how it's related to the real estate market. So, hi Ben, thanks for coming on Realtor Talks.
Hey mate, how's it going?
Yeah, good, thanks. So thanks for joining us today.
Realtor Talk.
Yeah, Realtor Talks.
Nice. I like it.
So yeah, well, first question, I think just introduce yourself. Where are you from? How long you've been in Dubai, and why you got into photography?
Okay, I am from Coventry in the Midlands. Um, I've been in Dubai for it's coming on 6.5 years now, I think, almost 7. I get confused with when I actually joined. 2014. Yes, 6.5 years. And I've been in luxuryproperty.com now for going on 2.5 years now.
Okay.
So that's, yeah. Well, I can't remember the other questions. What did you say?
So yeah, how did you get into photography, and why did you do it?
Photography. So I was in sixth form, no GCSE, and there was no other options for me in my school. So I didn't do that well, and it made me have to go to a different school to take on another A level in order to actually stay on in school, or else it would be, when you just leave school and you just do whatever after 16. So the last available place in the other school was in a photography course. So I was like, all right, I'll give this a go. It led me to stay in and then eventually go to university, where I did photography. But as soon as I started photography, it's the first time school had ever actually kind of made sense.
Okay.
And I could, I came from a very strict Catholic school. And in order to do this course, I had to move to a non-religious school where the whole system was so different. It wasn't stuffy. It wasn't like restrictive in any way, shape, or form. And my teacher, for one thing, was young, fun. She used to send us to KFC in break time to get her food. So it was like this whole world had just opened up to me of like creative and interesting things. And I just took to it like a duck to water. And then, before that, I would say I was a D average student.
Okay, so it was
Pretty
kind of like
bad.
you're kind of in a really enclosed environment, I guess, a stuffy environment, and this kind of was a complete change to you, and
Yeah.
you like brought out more of
So,
a creative side.
like, there's the way that there's different types of learning that people are like attracted to, and it does well with. Like, it took me till my last year of school to find the way that I learn best, and that's the problem I think with modern education. It doesn't actually help maybe 50% of the children, I would say, ones that don't get along with sitting and reading books all day long, and I can't write an essay to save my life. And then when you go into all these exams and stuff like that, just can't do it. So the exam for photography was just a 10-hour sitting in a classroom creating a piece of art.
Mm-hmm.
And I got an A star.
Yeah,
And it was just like, oh, this is great. Like, I've just figured out how to do school. Shame it's too late. And yeah, so then from there I went on to university. I had to do a degree in order to get onto my degree. So I studied in Coventry for a year, and then I went on to the University of Sunderland, way up north, which was an eye-opener. It was
okay.
good though.
Okay, so that's where your passion for it it came in there. Were you doing
Mm.
anything like, obviously when you were studying in the Catholic school beforehand? Were you doing anything creative there? Did you have any other creative outlets, or was it photography that really
Well,
brought
I've
that?
always, my granddad has always been like very, very keen amateur photographer. Um, I've always been exposed to it that way. Um, and yeah, I went to New York when I was 2005, so I don't know when that is. That's a long time ago now, 15
15
years
years ago,
ago.
yeah.
So yeah, I was probably about 14, 15, and they bought me a camera for that trip. And I went into, do you know what B&H photo is?
No, what's that?
It's basically like the most incredible camera shop in New York, in the world. It's the most famous camera shop in the world. And like right now, if you were to tell me I could go on holiday and go to B&H Photo, I'd be like, oh, incredible. But back then I was in this shop and I had no idea where I was. And it would be like the most incredible place for me to go to now. And you should watch YouTube videos about it. It's an amazing place. But that's where it kind of started for me. I went on holiday and then it was like, New York is amazing. Um, so yeah, I just jumped around there, took a few shots, and I loved it from then. And then started to play with these old film cameras and things like that. So I did love it before that, but I never actually sat down and did it until sixth form,
Oh,
where it eventually became, everything to me.
okay. So yeah, well, you talked about loving it. What is the thing, like, if you could say there's one thing about photography that you love and then that keeps your passion alive for it,
Mm.
what is it?
While it's that thing that comes, like, people nowadays won't understand, but like digital photography is new. It's brand new. It is so new, and it's made the process of photography so straightforward that it takes away all the things about it that were incredible. So there's nothing like taking a manual camera, taking a photograph that you have no idea if it's exposed properly. There's no screen on the back of the camera. You have some idea, but you have no idea if it's in focus, if it's exposed properly. You could have nothing, and you only have, if you've got a roll of 35mm film, you've got 35 shots, I think it was, or 36 shots, and that's it. You can't just go like smash, 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 loads of photos. Oh yeah, they all look great. I'm going to be fine. And then when you take them into the dark room, pitch black, you've no idea what you're doing. You load it onto the thing, you develop it for 10, 15 minutes, and then you start to put them in the enlarger, all that process, and then you put it in that wash, the chemical, in order to develop it. And then you see that image there. That is like the best feeling in the world. I can't even like begin to explain it properly, but that is lost these days. No one knows about that anymore. And that's the saddest thing about it, but that's the best thing about it. Like, if I could go back to those days, I just would. Like, it's taken all the incredible things about that and just, you've just got on a big screen that you can rifle through thousands of photos, and it's yeah, that was the best thing. Now you still see, I mean, what I do.
Yeah.
It's not just, I'm not just taking a shot, am I, really? It's rare that I take one photo and it'd be great.
Yeah,
I still have that when it's like you look through all these layers on Photoshop and then you click the top layer and you've created something that's, nothing like where you started. That's a nice point for me. Like, I enjoy the outcome of all the effort.
yeah, I guess
That's
that's the new process, isn't it? Where previously, before, like you said, you put it in the chemicals in the dark room. I guess now that
mm,
after shooting process is the Photoshop editing and the collating of the images. It's a different process nowadays.
yeah, and it's like the death of the photo album. Like when we were kids, like, my mom, everyone, they had photo albums stacked up everywhere. No one prints photos anymore,
Yeah,
unless it's to be properly framed. So that's another thing that's been lost, which
yeah.
makes
I
me
guess
sad.
I guess so. There's benefits obviously to it now, but yeah, it's just different times, isn't it? But I guess that's something, I guess, a bit romantic about the previous way that people used to take photos.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know how people did it. I don't. Can you imagine like the pressure on a wedding photographer and
Yeah.
doing that while having like nothing to help you really? I don't know how they did that. That's brave. I can't imagine doing that.
Well, then you had to be a real expert, didn't you? At that point, a real expert.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was properly like you couldn't do it if you weren't a professional photographer, no doubt.
Okay. So yeah, thanks for that, Ben. Thanks for that insight. I wanted to ask you specifically, obviously we're talking about real estate here. Um,
Mhm.
for realtors who are going into new properties or just amateur photographers, what are like some basic tips that you'd give them when taking photos, specifically of properties, but just in general as well?
Okay, so there's a few. There's a few. I don't want to give the competition any
Basic tips. I'm
any
saying
big.
the very basics.
Okay, well, okay, you've got to decide what the hero of the shot is. What's the hero of the house? What's the hero of the shot? So if we're in a $10 million penthouse, what is the hero of the shot? It could be the view. It could be oceanfront. So you have to prioritize what that is in order to, there's no use like taking that view facing away from the view. Like, I'll show you what we've got here. Yeah, oh, perfect. So this is, can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so like if you took that view away from this place, you can pretty much cut the value by half.
Yeah.
So you need to decide what is the absolute selling point of the property, and that is that view. Not to mention the square footage. I mean, that place is massive. So you got to figure out what to show and what not to show. What is irrelevant? What is there's stuff that's generic, especially in Dubai. There's all sorts of stuff that's just like, oh, I've seen that a million times, don't need to see that anymore. But you got to show what's unique and what is actually going to make that property worth that value. That is the number one thing. Like, regardless of photographic skill and stuff like that, if you were to just expose for that view, that's obviously going to be so much brighter than the indoors. You could take just a picture of that view and it's more interesting than a generic property. So focus on what's super, super, super important to the value of the property and what's going to show it off in its best light. In terms of photography, I would say invest in lenses rather than cameras. Lighting is always going to be your friend, and a tripod.
Okay.
I can't really say much more than that. I
No,
don't
look.
want to tell people what I specifically do.
No, I know. You obviously don't want to share your secrets because obviously it's the best photos. But yeah, if I'm just talking on the very basic level, people aren't going to get to the upper echelons without doing other certain stuff that I know you're not going to mention as well.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Okay. Well, all right. I'll simplify even more. Wide angle lens, tripod, stand in a corner.
Okay, so that's like the basic. Say you're making a basic kit for a beginner. Those are the items that you'd say that someone should buy first if they were looking to start doing.
Yeah, that'll get you there. Well, that'll get you there, and then spend about 2 weeks on YouTube and learn.
Okay, yeah. Well, you can self-learn everything now. And how much would that cost someone? Just like how much should someone be spending?
Oh, I mean, really, you could just buy an iPhone 11 and do pretty well. And then you've got a phone too. No, there is a big difference. People should realize that iPhone 11s are not cameras. The basics you could probably do it. We're talking in dirhams or dollars. What do you want to talk
Give
in?
it, give it in both. Or I'll give it. I'll translate. What do you call it? I'll. What can
Okay, so
I?
maybe let's go 300 dirham tripod. We'll go, I reckon you could do it all for under 5,000 dirhams.
5,000 dirhams. Okay, so you're looking at like,
Basic stuff.
okay, it's 5,000 dirhams. So
What's
it's
that?
still,
$1,500.
yeah, exactly. So okay, so it's not a huge outlay, but it's still like sort of,
Well, okay, so yeah, if you were an agent and your company weren't giving you the tools you needed in order to have the best photography or whatever, like there's no reason you shouldn't learn. I mean, it's your money at the end of the day. You're going to all these properties, you can get them up and listed that afternoon if you were, competent in photography. It's a winning combo.
yeah. And at the day, it's like we're self-employed. It is, well, yeah, it is
Mm.
important to know stuff for your own business, and in order for you to be more successful as an agent. Um, so yeah, well, if you're looking to do it for yourself, like you said, do you think videos are becoming more important than photography? Do you think that shift is
Yeah.
happening? Where do you think it's at the moment?
I don't think it's more important than photography. I think they exist together. I think you've got to be, realistic in terms of what currently the technology will allow us to do. And social media is pretty much, leading the way in terms of how we market stuff. So if all of a sudden they get rid of pictures,
Yeah,
and all profile pictures are now profile videos, like Harry Potter, all the pictures move and stuff like that.
yeah,
Everybody might have a 30-second thing where they're just, I don't know. But we have to move with the times. Photography isn't going anywhere. It never will. It's only going to move forwards. But video will most certainly be the easiest and best way to sell real estate, because you can't, for the most part, really lie with a video, especially for the average videographer. We're not using VFX, special effects, that kind of stuff. What you see is what you get. Now, the difference between that and photography is I have absolute control of the scene in photography. I'm blending exposures, I'm blending light, I'm blending times of day. I can show you what I want to show you, or I can, not show you anything. So I have absolute control, which is why I love that. And in video, it's essentially just a bunch of stacked images that you can do minimal adjustments to, moving the way you want them to move. But well said that you can incorporate music into it. You can incorporate, an agent to do a tour. You can kind of persuade people more with a video. I mean, advertising has been doing it for years and years. It's the same thing. We're just doing it, whereas before we wouldn't really have had an outlet. So now we can all make videos, and that's the thing. Everything is different nowadays because of social media.
yeah. Well, everyone, yeah, like you said, you could have an iPhone 11 and just be taking a video around a house and share it to people. I think the reason why I ask it is just because obviously we do videos in our company. Not many other people do it, but with the situation at the moment, the people are realizing the importance of video when you cannot
Yeah,
actually go to the property itself, and people don't want to just rely on photos. As great as photos are,
yeah. But I would say there's a huge difference between a professional and an amateur at the same time. So, okay, so if Property Finder were all of a sudden to put in a video box where the photography disappeared, okay,
yeah,
all of a sudden it's then vital to have a professional looking video for that property, with enough time to view it, so you don't just want someone walking around like that, in vertical 16 by 9. Like you want it slow, you want it wide, and you want it to be, complementary to the property itself. And in order to do that, you then do actually need a significant amount of equipment, and that would be the biggest game changer. If that was to happen, this whole thing would be absolutely insane.
Yeah,
But why isn't it that? That's what I don't understand. Why isn't it that?
well, I think this situation is going to make it transfer a lot more to that, but I still think the photographs are what the kind of the window in. So people will look at listings and look at the photos first, and just I reckon they'll start looking at the first couple and then go, oh, is there a video? I want to look at this in more detail. Whereas now they'll just flick through to like the later pictures. But I think the first
Yeah.
photos, like the hero shots, like you said before, are going to become key, and then that triggers them to go look, oh, I want to look at the video, because people are so quick, they have short attention spans. If they don't like those
Yeah.
first few photos, then they'll just go to the next listing, and then same thing.
Well,
Otherwise,
that's it, isn't it? They're competing with, sometimes, 3, 4, 5 agencies with the same property.
yeah,
So, like, that's where I come in. It's to make it our images always the number one that you visually go towards on Property Finder, and that's our portal in Dubai that we use the most. That you want that image to be the most standout image on the page.
yeah,
And I think for the most part it is. If people don't seem to realise how important it is in Dubai. I mean, actually, we do, because there's some real estate company that I won't name that loves stealing their images from us, and I'd like that to end. But yeah,
yeah. Well, you do
massive.
see, yeah. Obviously, some people do take our images, and we can report that. On the flip side, there are some people who just take terrible images. And like, what are your pet peeves in terms of what people do with their photos? What's the worst things that you see?
Okay, so I think if you're in a room, it's very rare that the walls are wonky. So straight lines, number one most important thing in the world to me. I can forgive darkness because it is so hard to get right. But messy, horrible, dirty kitchens. I think, if you see like a big frying pan out,
Okay.
you want every home to look like a show home. In an ideal world, that's possible nowhere, but you can definitely make every house look better than it is when you walk in. You can hide things, if there's TV remotes there, move them. If there's, what else have you seen in these places? Shopping. I mean, I've seen everything. The things that you see in people's houses is mental. Like, if anybody out there is thinking of a job that they don't know what to do, but they're really nosy, do what I do, because you get to go everywhere. Like, it's the best. But yeah, tidy up the house. I'm fed up of seeing just these god awful, and put the toilet seat down.
Yeah, I was going to say
I
that.
don't want to be reminded of that somebody's doing a toilet in their house. Like, this is a house I want to buy. Oh, that toilet seat's up. Somebody's left it up. Like, you don't want to think of the people living in there at all.
Yeah.
Take all personal effects out of it. Generic everything. That's massive.
Yeah. Well, the way I describe it is, if you were showing someone around the house, you'd want them to also have the feeling that it's not messy, it's not dirty, so that they will feel like they want to live in that house. I know a lot of people don't do that as well, but make it feel like a home when people walk in. And even if property is still a product. If you're doing that with any other product as well, you wouldn't go try and sell your car and it's like covered in sand, for example. You give it
exactly.
and do the
it's
same.
it's like going into a clothes shop and there's just thrown everywhere.
Thrown everywhere, and there's stains on the shirts. you just wouldn't pay the price, right? You wouldn't value it as much. So it's the same thing with property. Okay, so you mentioned
curtains closed. Sorry, mate, I just interrupted you. Curtains closed. I hate closed curtains.
Okay, to get the light in, you mean?
People who close curtains. That is the number one giveaway for an amateur, by the way. Oh, I can't figure out what to do. I'll close the curtains. Weak. So weak.
Okay. Shots have been fired by Ben to those
Yeah,
amateurs.
I'll fire those shots.
Okay, so well, you mentioned you get to see a lot of properties. You get to be quite nosy. Like being nosy around Dubai. What would you say has been your favorite area to shoot as a photographer? What's the most like picturesque area? And what's been your favorite
Ooh,
home or building that you've been to just overall in Dubai?
that's a pretty tough one. I hate Emirates Hills with a passion.
Okay.
Um, I do. I mean, some of the houses are incredible, but that accounts for maybe 10%. I don't agree with a lot of the design choices that's made out there. Let's say, um, but you would say that Emirates Hills, is the big luxury estate, wouldn't you? That's the number one.
Yeah.
I love Dubai Hills. Dubai Hills, give it time to settle in. There's going to be some great stuff going on there. It'll be much more contemporary. I like blue waters. That's always really pleasant. Um, Number one area.
I'm talking to photos,
Area is a tough
not
one.
your, well, firstly, what you like, what you'd like to stay in, having seen it, but also just in terms of for photography, what's good to shoot.
Oh, I mean, that's a pretty tough one because there's problems everywhere. Area. No, no one's ever asked. I'm a bit stumped. No one's asked me that one before. Well, I like rooftops. I like going to the marina, jumping on those rooftops. That's always nice if you get a good view. If you want to photograph that, or downtown, you get some great views. Do you mean like what is the best area generally to work in for what
Well,
I
yeah,
do, or
for you, what you do. I'm like, if I was asking another real estate agent, I'm asking them why they like a certain community, like what's good about it. But I'm speaking more on the photography
okay.
angle. Like, where's most picturesque for you? What are the easiest properties or the easiest area
Well, I
to
love JGE. I know what you mean now. I love JGE. JGE, I could live in JGE. Jumeirah Golf Estates.
Yeah.
That's to everyone. You've got the golf course in just every kind of little avenue and alley. Oh yeah, Hillside at Jumeirah Golf Estates. That would be my dream street to work in all the time. But for a whole area, I mean, the ranches is nice, but I've only just started working in the ranches. Yeah, I'll give it to Jumeirah Golf Estates.
Okay. Co-signed by
I
Ben
like it.
Golf.
I like it.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna put you on the spot, Ben. We're doing this thing where we do with all different guests we have, kind of a top five from them. And since you're into photography, you're a photographer and videographer, I wanted to get your top five of things that you haven't photographed yet, but you do want to photograph. And it can be a landmark, it could be a person, it could be a view or a sunset, anything. But just give me five
Yeah.
things that you haven't photographed yet. I'm sure you've probably thought about this and that you want to do in the future.
Yeah, I know this. This is like I actually have a list.
Yeah.
I got a list. Let me show you this list.
Is it narrowed down to five?
No, it's hundreds. That's
Okay.
what I'm gonna have to like. It's just
Okay.
so okay. So the main I want to do. I want to do that shot of New York from. I think it's the Rockefeller Center where you go. You know that it's called Top of the Rock.
Yeah, I've been there.
Oh, well, all right. Well, it's got that perfect view down Manhattan. I'm sure it's that building. Yeah, I want to get that. Um,
There's that area there in New York, isn't there? Where people gather around the sunset because the sun aligns perfectly to the grid system of the roads. The sunset, I forget what they
yeah,
call it now, but yeah,
I think it's called the Equinox.
yeah.
where I think it's, I can't remember. I know the day it comes out because every time that year, I'm flooded with those images. It's like lightning on the first Khalifa here.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
oh,
Or whenever
the
there's rain
storm,
in Dubai.
huge Burj Khalifa lightning shot. Um, yeah, so that's a huge one for me. Like, I'm pretty sure I will move to America at some point in the future, um, and then I'll start on all that. But the number one shot that if I could do, and I hope it happens in my lifetime, is I want to photograph the Earth from space.
Okay.
Like that to me. Like, do you remember that old Apple wallpaper? That was just the world.
Yeah.
Perfect circle of the world. Like that to me is. I mean, how do you get better than that?
Well, yeah, that's
Like you
the.
can't. It's the best landscape photo of all time.
You better get that ticket on Virgin Galactic so you can get
Yeah.
doing that.
Well, I won't be going on that. That's for sure. But yeah, I think that to me is a dream, and I'm fascinated by this whole. If Elon Musk gets us to Mars, which I'm hoping he does, like it opens up. Like there's a whole new world out there that can be photographed.
Yeah.
Like that to me is amazing. Like Olympus Mons, do you know what Olympus Mons is?
No, what's that?
That is the biggest mountain on Mars, and it's something like 3 or 4 times the size of Mount Everest.
Okay.
So it is pretty enormous. Like that just fascinates me. Like we only know what it's like to photograph in this world. Imagine what it's like to photograph in another world.
Mm.
Like that I'll bring it back to reality now.
Well, no, it's interesting actually. Like it definitely wasn't expecting that answer, but it's a really good one. And there's a lot of different landscapes and things that we just haven't discovered yet. And there's
I think it would be mostly red. Like, I think
might be
really good for red.
bit darker lighting as well, further away from the sun. But
Yeah, yeah, but there would be problems that photography is basically problem solving. That is all it is. But if you were to take it over to there and imagine the things you'd have to encounter there in order to get a shot, I wouldn't even know. Like we judge everything by time of day here in order to get a shot.
how,
What is the best time of day on Mars to get a photograph?
yeah. Well,
No
you
one
see
knows.
those you
Well,
see those
people know.
photos. Sorry, man. You see those photos from like NASA when they've been to the moon and stuff like that in the space station, but yeah, you don't know.
Mm.
You'd have no idea how they're taken, and then there's obviously the conspiracy theorists and all of this stuff as well that say they're not genuine. But yeah, it would be great to get like proper photos because at the moment you just have these probes, say for the ones that are going to Mars, and it just takes
Yeah,
years and years to even get there, let alone take actual photos.
yeah. It's that blows my mind. Um, what do I
Okay,
want to photograph in the world?
so you
I
said
mean, there's all the
Rockefeller,
landmarks.
the Earth, and what the
Yeah,
other?
that's just because all I want is like I want to put a frame up in my lounge of that shot, and I've not found a photograph that I really like of it yet. So I want to I want to do it myself.
Okay,
I mean, there's loads. I mean, I really want to go to Hong Kong and photograph the river from the city. That is incredible. There's a guy called Elia Lacardi who's got a shot that I just want to redo it so I can put it on myself. Um, yeah, that's a tough one. How do you? I mean, I've done Dubai to death. What's another great shot I could get?
are there any people you want to photograph? Are you into portraits at
I
all? Or?
mean, no, I used to be into portraiture. I hate it really, to be honest. Uh, People are just so picky. I mean, right now I won't mention her name, Hayat, complaining about her headshot. I just don't care. I don't care. I hate portraiture. portraiture is just one of those things where I think most people give it a go if they're a professional photographer before they find out what they do, and then the cream rise to the top in portraiture. Like my buddy is extremely good at portraiture, but I just have no love for it.
Okay.
Yeah, not in the slightest. It could disappear from the face of the earth, and I'll be happy.
Yeah, I'm a bit the same in that way. I don't like contrived shots. I don't like when people are like, oh, let's do a photo, like do a photo together. I prefer the candid shots. I think candid shots
Mm.
are much more real, and I think photography should be like capturing a moment or capturing like a snapshot in time, rather than just like standing here, like those shots you see when they used to not be able to smile because
I
the
prefer those. I prefer those.
you
Like
prefer those.
if everybody was like that, if everybody was like that now, so much better.
Yeah, because they
I
used to
love
have
that.
to stand still, didn't they? Because the film would
Yeah.
have to.
Have you seen A Million Ways to Die in the West?
Yeah, yeah.
The film. Yeah, they go into that. They're like, oh, did you see this? Did you hear that someone smiled in a photo last week? Like, wow, that's crazy.
Crazy.
Yeah, I love that stuff. I love that stuff. That's so much cooler. Like, why on earth is, why wouldn't you smile in a photograph back then? They didn't know what to do.
Oh
And
no.
there's still tribes out there that think you're trying to steal their soul, because you show them their image on the back of the screen.
Hmm.
They think that you've took a part of them away with you. Like they're
Yeah.
terrified of it.
Well, you
I
might.
don't know if that's true or that's just hearsay, but it's funny.
Yeah, and we might have in 50, 100 years time people looking at us like, what were those guys doing? Why were they taking selfies or something? They'll also think, oh, what were those guys doing? Why are they doing that like that? So who knows what's going to happen in the
Mm.
future? Okay.
Yeah,
So yeah, what else?
hilarious.
Any other countries you want to go to shoot? So you mentioned Hong Kong. You mentioned New York.
Oh, I've got to go to the polar ice caps.
Okay.
I've got to go. Yeah, I've maybe I'll just go as far as Iceland and sit at the top of Iceland, but I think that's the most different landscape you can see, isn't it? I
Yeah.
mean, I've done desert now. How I don't know if my mind would be able to cope with seeing these white landscapes. It's like I'm fascinated by all these BBC and Netflix, like Our Planet. Have you seen that?
Yeah. I love that as well.
The most incredible, like it must have won an award for photography because the way these landscapes look, it's just incredible. Like I don't know how it gets better than that. In terms of visually seeing something, I don't know how it gets better than that.
Yeah, I don't think anything's better because this is what I was going to ask you actually. Do you prefer taking like city shots or do you prefer just like what the earth has given to us in terms of natural beauty? Because I love
Yeah,
seeing
I love them.
photographs like that.
I have a lot of love for both. I mean, Mother Nature is the best artist of all time. Um, it's real, it's incredible. I tell you what, I'd love to do. I'd love to see a volcano erupt
Okay.
and shoot that. Like that is awesome to me because you've got the lightning and everything going around all the plume. That would be amazing. Yeah, I love photographing both. I'm very appreciative of how a natural landscape is just beautiful in its own right. But I love the progress of man. Like when you go and stand in a viewpoint that has a great Burj Khalifa shot, and you see that it's like double the height of every other building around it. Like that also is incredible to me. Like that is like human engineering at its finest, literally at its finest, because it's the tallest building in the world. It does it. There's other things that fascinate me, and that's one of them. Yeah,
Okay.
like I'm obsessed.
Yeah, no, it's a good thing, and shows that you you enjoy like doing what you do. um, so yeah, well, that's it. In terms of the future, what are you thinking to do with your like photography? Have you got any plans for the future, apart from taking properties? Obviously, is there anything else apart from obviously
Yeah,
going into space?
yeah, it will be definitely more design based. I definitely won't be doing it for real estate agents. That's for sure. It's I'll be doing it for, architects, interior designers, hotels, that kind of thing. Traveling the world with, hopefully some resorts employ me to fly over to them in the Maldives and stay with them and photograph their resort properly. That would be dream job.
Okay. Well, you get the mix, don't you, there, of the urban, but probably also the views and everything like that, the natural beauty.
Yeah, I mean, the Maldives has got to be the most pretty place in the world.
Yeah, exactly. And well, I need to go there as
Yeah,
well.
that's probably the next step. I can't see any other way around it. I get frustrated too much with real estate in order to do it for my whole life. So I'll be moving on at some point. I don't know when, but yeah, I like the perfection of the other jobs, the interior and the architectural jobs. And it's not just, oh, here's an hour, run around this house. It's like, here's a whole day to photograph a room. But like, oh, thank God, I can properly craft this, image here.
Yeah, it brings out the more artistic side of you, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you get to refine it. Sorry, interrupting you. No, I was just saying you get to properly have a refined image rather than something you're throwing together. That's the, basis of it.
Yeah. Okay, Ben. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast. Just one more thing, if you want to give out your social media handles to everyone so that they can follow you and see.
Oh, I only have one.
Okay, go ahead.
I literally only Instagram. Ben Preece DXB at Ben Preece DXB, and that's it. I don't use the others. I can't stand them.
Okay, well, it's the perfect one anyway for showing off pictures, Instagram.
Yeah.
All right, Ben.
What's yours?
They know. They know already.
Okay, mate.
All right, thanks, Ben. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
You're welcome.
And I'm sure everyone is really fascinated with the insight that you gave into photography here, and how it relates to property. So thanks for that, and see you. See you, mate.